the currently latest entry in this weird The Thing quadrilogy, if you're willing to count the video game. These 4 stories, more or less connected, but all handled by completely different teams. Just like with the video game, this one's a direct continuation of John Carpenter's 1982 film, only this time it's a prequel. I didn't like it all that much when I initially saw it, but I do hate it less now after giving it a few more chances. It's still not great, but I suppose it's not the worst thing out there either. As I said, this one's a prequel, taking place at the Norwegian Antarctica base where everything started. A United States paleontologist, Kate, is called in to help excavate an alien specimen found near a gigantic spaceship buried under the Earth. After bringing in the giant block of ice, the alien within escapes and starts wreaking havoc. Just like with the 1982 film, the big draw here is that the thing can infect and replicate any living organism. And as tensions heighten, the crew must wrestle with their sanity and their trust of each other. One of the biggest issues with this one is how much of a remake it is of the 1982 film, and the comparisons are very surface level, not only with its themes of paranoia, but also in how it touches on the exact same story beats. There's an autopsy scene, the scientists working on a blood test to prove who's the thing, holding up half the survivors at flamethrower point, locking away the most suspicious individuals in a separate shack. It goes on. However, interestingly enough, it also has quite a few similarities to the 1951 movie. The main character is an outsider that's brought into the base. The thing is brought in via a giant block of ice that slowly starts to melt. And there's even an antagonistic lead scientist.
Kate, just a second. In the future, don't contradict me in front of those people again.
I just started.
You're not here to think. You're here to get the thing safely out of the ice. I hope we understand each other.
The way it focuses so hard on referencing the previous 2 films kind of compromises its own identity. Parts of the story are even structured around explaining key details from John Carpenter's movie. That being said, it does do a couple of things unique to itself. One of the big ones is a story element that explains how the thing can only replicate organic material, and they use this to narrow down their witch hunt, mainly by checking to see if anyone has dental fillings, although, going back to my previous point, this is essentially a redo of Kurt Russell figuring out the blood test, but whatever. I'm sure the writers thought they were very clever, and there is a payoff towards the end, but this also messes with one of the setting's main elements. By so easily narrowing down your list of suspects, you've drastically lowered the stakes and killed off some of the mystery and excitement that was the strength of the previous film. The presentation is very hit and miss. The set design, landscapes, and props are really nice, but the special effects are the elephant in the room for the thing. They're really not all that great. While I do commend the creative transformations, you can tell just by looking how fake it is. It's as if all the CGI is on its own layer and it doesn't mesh well with the real film. It's hard for me to properly explain exactly what's wrong with it, but compare it to something like District 9, which released 2 years earlier, and the difference is night and day. This aspect doesn't ruin the film, but it does a poor job at upholding that original legacy as the diamond standard of practical special effects. In fact, supposedly, this 2011 The Thing was originally planned to use animatronics, much like John Carpenter's movie, but they switched it out for computer graphics at the last minute. It's really disappointing to think about what could have been. Like I mentioned in the previous review, the slower pacing and general murder mystery vibe of the original was most likely a compromise of sorts due to working with the limitations of using puppet models. For this one, thanks to the CGI effects, that's not so much the case. There is one scene where the Thing at least attempts to lure a victim and get a kill in silence, but any other time, this is basically a generic monster movie. Instead of hiding stealthily in plain sight and only revealing itself when it's absolutely necessary, the Thing now seems content with going on a rampage even if there's no immediate danger to itself. And hell, why not? This movie's version makes the Thing a far more powerful and effective killer, with rapid fast transformations along with great strength and speed to boot. It completely misses the point of the original movie despite it trying so desperately to be both a remake and a prequel. The Thing has no need to hide or turn the crew against each other, it can just kill everyone directly. The intrigue and mystery is only touched upon here, with the new focus being on fighting against a CGI monster. This is reflected in the music as well. The subtle or otherwise non-existent score of the previous movie has been replaced with one that's loud and bombastic, like a typical action blockbuster. It's pretty off-putting considering the tone that this should be going for. One of my complaints from the 1982 film was how it can be boring with how slow-paced it is, but that's multiplied tenfold here. About the first 20 to 25 minutes is entirely dedicated to setting up the plot and characters. There's hardly any fun dialogue, it's mostly talking shop about how they're gonna dig up the alien specimen out of the ice, and while I thought the cast of the original film didn't have the characters differentiate from each other enough, the characters in this one are super bland. I honestly feel bad about complaining before because this cast is totally unremarkable. The acting isn't the greatest either. There's a lot of little awkward pauses, even when it's not warranted, and it doesn't make sense.
He just wanted to, actually, this is him. Okay.
I'm Dr. Sander Helverson.
Kate Lloyd.
Yes. Do you know who I am?
I do.
Adam told me a little bit about you as well. He says you specialize in vertebrate paleontology.
Primarily, yes.
And obviously you extracted specimens from pack ice.
I've worked on several cold weather digs.
Good.
It's a shame because they did a decent job with the original, but this one doesn't live up to the same standard. I don't want my opinion of this movie to be shaped so strongly by the previous one, but that's what happens when you try so hard to ape a source material that you might as well have made a remake, and yet it still manages to completely miss the mark. Even when the Thing does manage to do something unique and stand on its own, it's still nothing special. I wouldn't mind it so much if it was just a schlocky monster movie, but what we got instead is a schlocky monster movie that tries to be pretentious and fails. If you go in with low expectations, then it's not the worst thing in the world, but it is very generic and very forgettable. Thanks for watching my review on The Thing.